In this video, let's take a look at how to create a terrain, which is basically the ground that we are going to use to build something up on. So there are a couple of ways that you can bring in assets, create objects, and both of those things can be done through these two menus. Now, the assets, we can import assets, we can import packages, we can use already existing packages that's available in Unity as well. So to start off though, we're going to go into game object, and we're going to go into 3D object, and we're going to create a terrain. Now as you can see, whenever you need to create something new from scratch, this is what you do. You go to game object, then you go to 3D object, and then you create a 3D object. So that's how you should remember it. Like if you need to create a cube, if you want to create something inside of Unity, it is going to be a game object, and if it's a 3D object, you go into 3D objects, and then you find that particular object that you want to create. Now in this case, I want to start by creating a terrain, which is going to be the ground for this particular project. So let's click on terrain, and when I do that, as you can see on this side, this create panel, or the hierarchy panel, under the create, we find this terrain option. Right? You have a main camera, and you can select it, and you can see that. Then the light, and then I have this terrain. Now when I select that, you can see the inspector populates with its information, and the terrain is pretty big because it's basically the world that we are creating, right? So it needs to be pretty big, and this is our terrain. Now the way that you navigate inside of Unity is also a little bit interesting and a little bit different. So you can use your middle mouse scroll button to zoom in and zoom out, and then you can pan by using the middle mouse button. Just click and pan, and then if you press shift and use your right mouse button, you can orbit around. Now when you orbit, it orbits around an object that you selected. Right now it's the terrain, but it's using the pivot point that we have here, right? So for example, if I move it a little bit closer, just a tag closer to find our camera. Now when I select the camera, if I use my shift key, press my shift key and my right mouse button, now you're rotating around the camera, orbiting around the camera. Same thing with the light, so now you're orbiting around that. So that's one way to move around or navigate the space, and you can move up and down, pan it, and just navigate to whatever point that you need to navigate to. Now we are interested in creating this terrain just a little bit more and making it more interesting. So when I select the terrain, there are some tools that appear here. These are the terrain tools, and with these we can modify this terrain to different forms and shapes that we need. So the first one, it says, when I move my mouse button, it says rise and lower the terrain height. That sounds interesting, so let's try and do that. I'm going to click that. When I click that, you get a bunch of paint brushes, if you will. You see these paint brushes, and you can use any of these shapes in order to raise and lower the terrain. And then when you move your mouse over the terrain, you see this big blotch that shows you where this paintbrush is going to be applied, and you can change this size. So now it's at 100, and you can move this, and as you can see, it makes it smaller, right? So I'm gonna leave it at 100, leave it at 100 itself, and let's see what it does. And you can also change the opacity, which changes the intensity of the brush, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. And when I click on the surface, you see it begins to create a terrain, like mountains and all sorts of fun stuff, and you can just move around and see how it looks like. You can use these tools as well, just to create different types of mountains, mountain ranges and whatnot. So you can create smaller bit of a mountain range there. Just blend it in. So we have this internal enclave kind of thing, where you can create your geometry, other geometry, and you can try out other shapes as well if you wanted to. And those bring in interesting forms into your terrain. So that way you can create a terrain. Now the other tools, some of the tools we don't need to even talk about. We're not going to use it. Oh, another thing that I forgot, if you don't want a certain part that you just created in terms of the terrain, what you can do is you can press your shift key, and then while in the same tool, if you click, you can erase those sections off as well. That's important to know. Then interesting things, we'll come back to this one, which is paint the terrain heights a little bit later, because we need an asset to do that. And we can smooth terrain heights as well, like to blend things in just a bit, like so. So it makes it smoother, the terrain tops. And then we have these two options here. First one is place trees. The other one is place plants, stones, and other small objects. Now, in order to do this, we need to bring in an asset, because right now we don't have any grass textures or trees or anything of that sort. So I'm gonna go in and let's see how we can bring assets into our project. Now there are three ways now to bring in assets. Assets are anything that we bring from outside, and it contains objects, it can contain effects that we need to include in our project. So we can bring in assets by going here and bringing in assets that are already available in Unity, or we can bring in a custom package, which is an asset that's already that you've already packaged, or an asset package that has been shared with you by someone else, right? So to start off, we're going to do that. We're going to bring in a custom package that's already been packaged and it's available to you right now. So this package, you can find it under this week's resources. There is a package called World Builder .unity package. So download this and use it here. I've already downloaded it, so I'm going to use that. In order to use it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Assets. I'm going to go to Import Package, and I'm going to go Custom Package, and I'm going to select this World Builder Unity package and say Open, and it opens up inside of Unity. Now there are a bunch of stuff here. It's automatically selected. You can unselect any of these if you wanted to, if you know what to unselect, but I'm not going to do that. Make sure that you just click on all and say import, and that asset is going to get populated, and you're going to see that under the assets folder here. So there we go, we have the World Builder asset, and if you go into the folder, there are some things like scripts available, trees, textures, all sorts of fun stuff is available here, and we're not really worried about any of those. We're not going to go into these folders. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use them from here itself. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go to place plants. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add grass to this this terrain. So I'm going to go place plants, and I'm going to go into edit details and click on add grass texture. When I do that, this dialog box should pop up, and right now it says detail texture. Right now we don't have any texture here, so I'm going to click on this small dot or the circle here, and when I do that, I should see a bunch of textures that's available. Right now I don't see anything that I can use from the asset that I brought in, so for now I'm just gonna click the X button, and let's see if we can bring in another asset and see if there is anything available that we can use in there. So I'm going to close this off, and the next asset that I'm going to bring is under assets. I'm going to go into import package, and I'm going to go into environment. So I'm going to click on environment, and these are the assets that come with Unity. So and it comes with a whole bunch of stuff that you can use in your projects. So as you can see, there's environments, utility, and whatnot. I'm gonna say just to be sure, I'm just gonna click on all and say import. Now let's go back and see if we have a grass that we can use in this particular asset. Now in the previous asset we saw that we can use the trees. We haven't gone there yet, but let's see in this what we can use from this asset package. And you might have to bring in multiple asset packages from the asset store, from other locations, in order to get the exact material or object or effect that you want to create inside of your projects. Alright, so it's giving me this warning. Don't worry too much about it, it's not going to affect your project right now. So again, go to this place, plants and stones and such, and click on edit details, add cross texture, and click on this small button here. Now if I scroll down, I have a little bit more stuff than I had previously. These are the ones that came from the environment asset that we brought in. So let's see if I have a grass. Now I do have a few grasses here, and if you don't see these larger icons, what you can do is you can click on you move the slider to the very end, then you should see the larger icons. So what I want to bring in is this one here, grass frond albedo alpha. This is the one that I want to bring in, not anything else, this one. So let's see what that does. I'm gonna just double click, and when I do that, it opens up here, and I can change some of the things here. I can change the maximum height, and I can come back and change those as well. This would say this is 2 meters. It's saying 2 meters. Maximum height 2 meters. Minimum height is 1 meter, I think. So I'm just gonna leave it as it is. It's pretty tall grass, but that's fine. And you can change the color of it as well. The healthy color, the dry color, you can change those. But for now, I'm just gonna say add, and that's gonna get added here. So let's see what we can do with this added grass. Now when you apply it, you're not seeing anything at all. Like it's you're just painting and nothing's appearing. But if you scroll in just a tad, you will begin to see the grass. This is one of the ways that Unity conserves the computational power, because if you scroll out, you don't need to see the grass, right? If you scroll in, you begin to see the grass that you applied, and that's the grass that we've applied. That's pretty big grass, but that's that. So you can add grass wherever you want, and you're not going to see any of it, but I mean at this level at least. But if you scroll in, you will see those grass on your terrain. So that's grass. Now what we want to do next is add some trees, right? So we can go into place trees. And if you remember, in the previous asset that we brought in, the world builder, we had some trees available. See the big tree and the little tree. So let's bring in some trees. So similar to grass, what we can do is we can select the tree, go to edit trees, and say add tree. Now again, similar to the grass, we see none under the tree prefab. So we just click on this small dot here, and here are some of the trees that we can bring in. We have the big tree, or the little tree, I guess. I'm just gonna use the big tree and double click on it, and there are bend factors and such that we can use, which basically is a way that the tree is going to behave under windy conditions. I'm just going to add that, and I have this huge brush applied, but let's see what it looks like when I just apply a bunch of trees. There you go. Right, those are all the trees, and we can populate this entire area with trees, even on the mountains. Right, we can just add trees, just go crazy with the trees. Right. So like that, we can add all the trees that we want. Another thing that we can do is we can now if you take a look at this, most of the space, it looks white, like snow has fallen on top of the terrain. So we don't want that. We want a uniform color, but it needs to be an earthy tone. So we can do that as well. We can go here and we can, this is the paint terrain texture. We can go here, we can edit the texture that we want. So we can go in and say add texture, and there are two maps they're asking for, albedo map and a normal map. So I can click on this and see if I have any albedos and normal maps available. Right now there is nothing that I can possibly add, I guess. Well, maybe the cliff one that I could probably add, but let's see if I have a normal and an albedo. I don't think I do have those. So the albedo, basically what it does, or the normal, what it does is it creates the texture on top of it. So I can show what that means. Like, let's say if I added the albedo here, and for the normal, now for the normal, let's say I added something else, like, I don't think I can, maybe I can. Let's see, I added that, and let's say add. And once I do that, see, the whole terrain gets a uniform color, and that doesn't really look good because of the different albedos that I use. So I'm gonna go back, select it, and edit texture, and maybe change this. Right, so the normal map needs to match the albedo map that I added. So the albedo map that I added was, I think, so this one. So something similar to that. If I have a normal map, and it should be named as such. Like if I change it to this now, you'll see the difference. There you go. So I don't think I have any appropriate normal maps that I can right now add. So I can't do this because it's not gonna apply just because it's an albedo. What I'm gonna do is, though, I'm gonna bring in some other textures. Right now I'm just gonna leave it like this, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the asset store and I'm gonna see if I can bring in another asset. Now we saw two ways to bring assets. One is to go and bring assets from the Unity assets, or just bring in Unity assets. The other one is just to bring in a package that you have saved on your hard drive. The other one is to go to the asset store and find an asset that we want to bring in. Now, this is the one that I want to bring in, free island. So I'm going to go in and click on free island. And I already previously I just tried it out, so that's why it's grayed out in mine. It says purchase. So once you purchase something, or it's a free asset, as you can see, it's free. And when you download stuff, just click on this one here, which says to only select free assets, and that should pop up. So free island collection is what we want. I'm just going to click on that, and just click on import or download, and then you might have to again click on import to bring it into your Unity. So let it download, and that's our package, and it has a bunch of stuff like grass, skies, terrains, even it has some textures that we can use, the dirt texture. It even has some scenes. Now we need to talk about scenes, but before that, let's just bring it in and see what we can do with this particular asset. So now you can see the free island collection under assets. So you have this particular folder. Once you've downloaded it, you should see that. I'm gonna go and change the tab again to scenes, so that I'm here, and I'm just gonna click on the terrain, or you can select terrain here, and then the terrain should pop up. I'm gonna go back to the paint terrain and go to edit texture, say edit texture, and find something else that we can use. I need a albedo, so there is this muddy rock albedo, so I can use these two quite easily, and these came with the free island collection. So I'm gonna use the muddy rock as my base, and the muddy rock albedo, muddy rock normals as the other the normal map. So I think that that might be, well, has a sort of a, well, I think that might be better. Alright, so that's applied, and we can change the size even if you wanted to. You can change the size, you can type it in. You can type this in, say about 7. Let's see what happens. You can type this in 7, but then it becomes it looks like a grid. So let's make it bigger. So there we go. That's too much, I guess. 10. What about 10? That's not good. 15. Let's just keep it at 15. I think that's fine. And once you apply the grass, you're not going to see this. This is just a base coating, just so that it doesn't show in your renderings that well. Not in the renderings, but when you move around, it's not going to show up as a white patch. So like this, I mean, if you have other textures, and I'm sure that we have some that you can use here as well, like the sand one, sand albedo and sand normal, you can use that as well. Like that, you can create a base coat for this. So that's about using creating the terrain and bringing in objects, modifying the terrain using the terrain tools. Now another thing that we can take a look at is, since we're talking about terrains, when you brought in the free island collection, there were some scenes that that we have here. We can double click on it and open it up, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the environment folder and go to terrains, and you should see a bunch of terrains that you can use. This one, so you can just select it and just drag it here, and you have this new terrain. It's nicely created. I'm just gonna move this aside. This is the terrain that we created. This is the one that we brought in from the island example, right? So you can use these terrains as well if you wanted to. Very nicely created terrains. As you can see, it's painted nicely using the same tools that we were trying to use, but it's much nicely created, and those ones take a lot of time to just go in and try to paint it up, create a nice looking terrain. But just wanted to show you that, and in the next video let's try to bring in a person into this environment, so we can just move around the space.